Jody. I hope you're doing well and that you're finishing out this last session pretty quickly and that it's not too stressful for you. I know those end of the year gradings for myself were pretty stressful and I felt rushed. So hope you're doing okay. This is my video talking about my writer's portfolio. So I'm just going to jump right into my 3 ahas from each of these writing projects. So I'll start with my revision work, which was of my original Septima Poinsettia Clark paper that I wrote for a history class, years ago. Anyway, my first aha moment was just that I don't think I ever knew how to revise something, and I never took the time to truly sit and take the time to revise. I feel like most of the time when I would go back and look over all of my papers, I was just editing. I was looking for punctuation errors, capitalization errors, maybe I should change this word so that it seems more academic or whatever, but I never went back and actually deleted things and rewrote them and changed them. So that is my first aha moment. The second was just setting clear goals. I think that really helped me to focus in on what I wanted to change. I think the reason why my revision process before was lacking so much was just because I felt overwhelmed, and definitely having those 3 specific goals helped me to focus in and to just kind of tune out the other things that I didn't need to pay as much attention to, I guess. And that's something that I definitely want to take into my classroom, because I have had students say to me, well, Miss Seaton, I don't know how to revise a paper. And so I think having them set clear goals will help them. And then my third and final one is just being intentional about choosing my goals. I think it was kind of easy for me to be like, oh, well, I should just revise this because it's going to be the easiest thing for me to do. But I realized that I needed to actually sit and that there were problems in the paper and I needed to fix those. So being intentional with those goals and not taking the easy way out. But I really like how this paper turned out. I wish I could just resubmit it to my professor. Okay, I'm going to move on to my original work, which is my compare and contrast. And this was looking at the enchanted forest in both The Hobbit and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And so my first aha moment from this one was just the importance of pre-writing. Normally my writing process is, okay, here's my prompt. I'm going to start writing whatever I want, come up with a clear thesis, and then go from there. But I think pre-writing really helped me to narrow down what I wanted to do, because even as I was doing my pre-writing, I realized that I wanted to change my topic. And if I had just jumped right into my paper and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, actually I want to write about this, I would have wasted all that time writing. So the pre-writing process was really beneficial for me in that aspect. The second one was also just looking at the different structures of comparing and contrasting. I took an AP World Lit class when I was in high school, and they taught us how to do compare and contrast, but they only taught us topic by topic. And so to go point by point just really helped me to see that there was another way to do it, because I think based on whatever the topic is, one or the other will fit better. So knowing how to do both of them was beneficial for me. And then finally was just being concise with the topic. I think when I first went into it, I was like, oh, I'm going to do elements of a fairy tale. But once I started writing it, I was like, well, what elements am I going to look at? And so I had chosen 3 elements, but I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be like a 15-page paper. So I narrowed it down to just the enchanted forest. So I thought that being broad would be easier, but actually being too broad was too difficult. So just being intentional about what my topic's going to be. And I really liked how this paper turned out as well. I'm going to jump into my analysis of my discourse community, which starts on page 17. So this one was something that I've actually never done before, so it was all new. And I think the first aha moment that I took away from this was the process of interviewing Because first, I've never really interviewed someone before without a professor or a teacher giving me example questions or questions that I should be asking. So just deciding on what questions to ask and being intentional about those questions was something that was beneficial for me. And I also, thinking back to that, there were questions that I wish I had asked afterwards. So I think even just running through questions that could come off of answers to my previous questions, and I need to be thinking ahead about those things. The second thing that I learned from this one was creating the charts in word processor, and not just that, but picking specific criteria to look at to take what I was saying and put it into words. And so I think that was really helpful for me because I like visuals, and just learning how to do that was something that I'll take with me. And then finally, just writing the formal report in general. Like I said, it was nothing. I'd never written anything like this before, so it was all brand new. And one thing that I was really intentional with this was my diction. I wanted to make sure that it was fitting for the work and for my community that would be hearing this, or rather reading it, especially since it is an analysis of a discourse community, and I assume that my audience would be that discourse community or someone who's interested in it as well. So that is my discourse community report. I'm going to jump down to my book critique, which begins... Oh, as I'm scrolling through this, I see the appendix too. That was another thing that I was like, oh, she wants an appendix. I don't know how to do that. So just learning how to format that with MLA and throwing it in to the report was helpful as well. My book critique begins on page 35. And this book was so fantastic. I know that it's like 20 years old. I think it was published in 2000. But Carol had such great strategies and things to say, and I actually have it all highlighted, and I'm going to keep it in my classroom because there are some things that I wrote like, this is what I need to do for Beowulf. So I hope to actually use this book. So this was really helpful. The first aha moment that I had from this critique was just learning how to structure it, because as I was thinking about what she was saying, there was so much that I could have talked about. I could have talked about her argument. I could have talked about her stance on classics. I could have talked about her teaching strategies. There was so much. And so because there was so many topics that she had covered, I decided that I was just going to do beginning to end. And I think that helped me to be able to pick out the most important themes and things that she talked about. So that was an aha moment for me, especially because I have students write book critiques. And so I just want to offer them other ways to do that. And I can use this as an example now for that. The second aha moment that I had was critically analyzing the text as an audience member versus critically analyzing it to use it in support of an argument. So that sounds like a mouthful, but I don't think that I've really ever read an advice book, or a lot of books really, because most of the time I'm going to use them for school, or I'm going to use them to support an argument, or I'm going to use them to make a case for something. And so just sitting and reading it critically as an audience member, what is this book doing for me? How can I apply it? What am I learning from it? That was something new for me. And so writing this was, I had to change my brain, because my brain wanted to be like, well, I agree with this because da-da-da-da-da. But I needed to actually just assess what she's saying and is it helpful or not. And then finally, and I mentioned this at the beginning, just using this book in my classroom. I'm glad I chose this book and not just some random book, because I can actually use this. The most important thing that she had said in there that kind of struck me was that some students don't know how to actually read and how to have a conversation with a book as they read it. And this is something that, I mean, it just came naturally for me as a reader. I'm sure someone taught me along the way, but if a student's not understanding a novel, maybe it's because they don't know how to have this conversation, this back and forth with a book. And so she gave me some great ideas on how to teach students how to do that, and then yeah, just a reminder to take the time to do that as well. because I think it's easy for me to be like, well, you're in high school, you know how to read a book critically. So it's a call on me not to be lazy. Okay, I'm going to jump into my argument project, which begins on page 42, and this is over 10 minutes now, so I will be brief. So I think for this, the first aha moment is just the steps to create this big project. When you first said it was an argument project, I was actually kind of worried about it, but you broke it down so easily, and it gave me ideas on how to break larger writing projects up for my students. The second one was the literature review, because I've never actually written one of those, and I loved that I could go back, reread the sources, which sometimes I don't always go back and relook at them. So it was good for me to actually pick out what is the most important thing that this author is saying about my argument. And then finally, just looking at the different approaches of arguments. I'm going to be teaching a technical communications and writing class this fall, and we are going to be looking at argumentative process, and we're going to be looking at fallacies and all that good stuff. So just to kind of dip my toes in these argument processes, and then to implement one of them for myself was really helpful for this upcoming year. All right, Jody, thank you for a great session, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon.